Sometimes, the loudest screams are the ones we never utter. Imagine this. I went a whole month without speaking, and in that silence, something crept out of the shadows, something that still haunts my dreams. I'm sharing this story with you because it changed me, and I think it might change how you see your own quiet moments. It's not just about what happened, it's about what I learned, and trust me, it's worth hearing to the end. I'll never forget that first morning. It was one of those crisp autumn days where the air bites just enough to wake you up. I was sitting in my usual spot at the cafe down the street, a steaming cup of tea in my hands, watching people rush by, talking, laughing, arguing. The noise hit me like a wave, crashing over my thoughts until I couldn't hear myself anymore. That's when I decided, I'm going silent. For a month. No words, no chit-chat, nothing. I wanted to see what would happen if I stripped away the constant hum of conversation and just listened. Why? I guess I was tired. Tired of filling every gap with sound. Tired of pretending I had it all figured out. I'd always been the one friends came to for advice, the one who could talk through any problem. But lately, I'd felt hollow, like I was echoing someone else's wisdom instead of finding my own. So I made a pact with myself. 30 days of silence to dig into who I really was. Sounds noble, right? Maybe a little crazy. I had no idea what I was stepping into. I prepped like it was a mission. I told my friends I'd be off the grid, no calls, no texts, just a quick, I'm fine, just experimenting note, so they wouldn't worry. I stuck a sign on my door for deliveries. Leave it here, thanks. My little apartment became my fortress, and that first day, I felt like a pioneer. The world sounded different right away. The clock ticked louder, the floorboards creaked like they were talking, and outside, kids shouted in the distance, their voices sharp and clear. I sat there, soaking it all in, thinking, this is it. This is going to be amazing. For a while, I'd walk to the park and watch people. Really watch them. The way a mom's shoulders slumped when her kid ran off. The way an old man's eyes lit up feeding the ducks. I'd never noticed those things before. At home, I'd sit with a book or just stare out the window, letting my mind wander. It felt good, like I was peeling back layers I didn't know I had. I started jotting down thoughts in a notebook, not to share, just to keep track. Day 1. Silence is louder than I expected. Day 3. I miss laughing, but I hear more now. By day 5, though, something shifted. I was lying in bed, the room dark except for a sliver of moonlight sneaking through the blinds. That's when I heard it, a whisper. Not the wind, not my imagination, but a soft, scratchy sound, like someone muttering just out of reach. I sat up, heart thumping, straining to catch it again. Hello, I thought, not daring to speak. Nothing, just the usual night noises. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of an overactive mind. But as I drifted back to sleep, I swear I saw something move, a flicker, a shadow, gone the second I blinked. The next day, it happened again. I was making tea, the kettle hissing, when that whisper brushed past my ear. Listen, it seemed to say. I froze, cup in hand, staring at the empty kitchen. My pulse raced, but I shook it off. You're fine, I muttered in my head. It's just the silence messing with you. Still, I couldn't unhear it. That night, the shadow came back, darting across the wall like a spider skittering out of sight. I rubbed my eyes, told myself I was tired, but a tiny part of me wondered, what if it's real? Hey, before I go on, I've got to say something. You're here listening to me, and that means a lot. Our little corner of YouTube is growing fast, faster than I ever thought possible, and it's because of people like you who stick around for these stories. If you're enjoying this so far, hit that subscribe button. It'd mean the world to me, and you won't miss what's coming next. Okay, back to it. By the end of that first week, I was hooked on the experiment but rattled. The whispers kept coming, faint and fleeting, like a radio signal cutting in and out. Listen closer, they'd murmur, always at night, always when I was alone. The shadows, too, they'd flicker in corners, never staying long enough to be sure. I started wondering if I'd made a mistake, if silence wasn't the gift I'd thought it was. But I'd committed, and I'm stubborn like that. So I kept going, even as the air in my apartment grew heavier, like it was watching me back. Looking back, I should have known it was just the beginning. Silence, I learned, doesn't just show you who you are, it digs up what you've buried. And trust me, what I found wasn't pretty. If you've ever thought about going quiet, even for a day, let me tell you, it's powerful. But be ready, because once you stop talking, something else might start. You ever notice how your mind starts filling in the blanks when you're alone too long? That's what I figured was happening to me. The whispers I'd been hearing? Just the wind sneaking through the cracks in my apartment. The shadows flickering in the corners? My eyes playing tricks after too many late nights. By the second week of my silence experiment, though, I wasn't so sure anymore. The quiet wasn't just outside, it was inside me, heavy and thick, like a fog I couldn't shake. And in that stillness, something else was stirring. It all started with the book. Day 8, I was poking around my bookshelf, looking for something to distract me, when I found it a small, leather-bound thing, shoved behind a stack of paperbacks. The cover was dusty, worn, like it had been sitting there for years. Here's the kicker, I didn't remember owning it. Not a clue where it came from. I pulled it out, curious, and flipped it open. The pages were old, yellowed, crammed with handwritten notes, someone else's messy scrawl, not mine. There were weird little sketches too, eyes staring out from the margins. One line jumped out at me. Silence is the door. Do not open it. I laughed. Well, sort of. It was more of a silent puff of air through my nose. Spooky coincidence, I told myself, and slid it back onto the shelf. But that night, the whispers came back, sharper than before. Open it, they hissed. So close I swore, I felt something brush my ear. I shot up in bed, heart slamming against my ribs. The room was dark, empty, just moonlight pooling on the floor. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching me. The next day, I decided to get out. Maybe I was losing it, cooped up too long with my own thoughts. I grabbed my coat and hit the park, figuring fresh air might snap me out of it. For a while, it worked. Kids laughing, dogs chasing each other, the world buzzing like normal. Then I saw it, a shadow, quick and sharp, darting between the trees. I froze, staring. Nothing there, just branches swaying. I rubbed my eyes and kept walking, but my skin crawled, like invisible eyes were pinned on me. Back at the apartment, things got weirder. The whispers didn't wait for night anymore. I'd be flipping through a magazine or stirring soup, and there they were, soft, nagging, like a radio station I couldn't quite tune in. Listen, they'd murmur, or it's here. My head started pounding, a dull ache that grew with every word. I'd clamp my hands over my ears, but that only made it worse. And the shadows? They were getting cocky, sliding across the walls in broad daylight, long and thin, like fingers reaching out. I'd whip around to catch them, but they'd vanish, leaving me jumpy and out of breath. By day 12, I was a wreck. Sleep was a distant memory, and my notebook was a mess of scribbles. Am I crazy? What's happening? Silence was a bad idea. I thought about quitting, just blurting out a word, hello, stop, anything, to break the spell. But I'd made it this far. And honestly, part of me was curious. What was the silence digging up? What was I supposed to find? Then came the knock. It was afternoon, and I was mid-sip of tea when it hit, sharp, unexpected. I nearly dropped the cup. No one was supposed to come by. Another knock, louder. I crept to the door and peeked out. Sarah, my best friend, stood there, brow furrowed. I'd forgotten. She'd promised to check on me. I let her in, and she took one look at me. You look awful, she said, half laughing, half worried. This silence thing, is it worth it? You're freaking me out. I forced a smile and nodded, but inside I was screaming. I wanted to spill it all. The whispers, the shadows, that creepy book, but my vow held me back. I waved her toward the kitchen, pouring tea with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She kept talking as she followed. Seriously, you're pale. And this place, it feels weird. Are you okay? I shrugged, handing her a cup. She wasn't wrong. The air felt dense, like it was pressing down on us. She sipped, eyeing me. If something's up, you can tell me. You don't have to do this solo. Oh, how I wanted to. Something's here, I thought. I'm not solo. But I just shook my head, pointing to the calendar. 18 days left. I could tough it out. Sarah sighed. Fine, but be careful. Silence can mess with you. She left, and I bolted the door, slumping against it. She was right. Too right. But I wasn't too deep to quit now. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the book. I grabbed it off the shelf, hands trembling, and started flipping through. More cryptic stuff. It waits in the quiet. Don't let it in. The shadows know. My gut twisted. This wasn't random. Whoever wrote this knew something. Then a page slipped out, floating to the floor. I picked it up and froze. It was a drawing, rough and shaky, a shadowy figure in a doorway, all long limbs and hollow eyes that seemed to bore into me. Underneath, in wobbly letters, "It comes when you stop speaking." I dropped it, stumbling back. My pulse roared in my ears. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But the whispers kicked up, a chorus of, "It's here, it's here, it's here." I spun, scanning the room. And there it was, a shadow, darker than the rest, pooling in the corner. It stretched, rising, taking shape. I gasped, throat tight. For a heartbeat, I saw eyes, empty, starving eyes, locked on mine. I blinked, and it was gone. Just an empty room, silent except for my panting. I slid to the floor, pulling my knees up. Was I cracking up, or was something really there, hiding in the quiet I'd let in? I didn't sleep that night. I sat there, lights blazing, clutching the book like it could explain everything. One thing was clear. This silence wasn't just about me anymore. It was opening something up, something that didn't feel friendly. Here's the thing I'm learning. Sometimes, the stuff we're scared to face is exactly what we need to look at. But actually doing it? That's where it gets tricky. And trust me, it's only getting trickier. By the time week 3 rolled around, I was hanging on by a thread. The whispers had become my constant companions, buzzing in my ears like static that never quite tuned into words. The shadows, too, they didn't even bother hiding anymore. They'd slink across the walls, stretch across the floor, always just out of reach. I'd stopped trying to catch them. I was too tired. My notebook was a mess of half-sentences and frantic scribbles. It's watching me. I'm not alone. Why won't it leave? I couldn't stay inside anymore. The apartment felt like a cage, the air thick with whatever was haunting me. So, I started spending more time at the park, hoping the sunlight and open space would keep the darkness at bay. It worked, sort of. The whispers faded to a hum, and the shadows couldn't follow me into the bright, bustling world. But even there, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. People would glance at me, quick, darting looks, and I'd catch them whispering, their eyes flicking away when I turned. They know, I thought, paranoia creeping in. They can see it too. One afternoon, I was sitting on my usual bench, staring blankly at the ducks gliding across the pond, when a shadow fell over me. Not the shadow, but a real one. A man, tall and thin, with a face like crumpled paper. He wore an old tweed coat, despite the warmth, and his eyes were sharp, piercing. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, voice gravelly. I nodded, scooting over. He settled beside me, folding his hands in his lap. For a while, we just sat there, watching the water. Then he spoke again, softer this time. "You're the quiet one, aren't you?" I blinked, startled. How did he know? I hadn't told anyone besides Sarah about my experiment. I nodded slowly, and he chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. "Thought so. You've got that look, like you're carrying something heavy." I shrugged, trying to seem casual, but my heart was racing. Who was this guy? And why did he seem so knowing? He leaned back, eyes narrowing. Silence is a funny thing. Most people think it's empty, but it's not. It's full of everything we don't say, everything we're afraid to hear. I swallowed hard, throat dry. He was hitting too close to home. I wanted to ask him what he meant, but my vow held me back. So I just stared, hoping he'd keep talking. And he did. I tried it once, went quiet for a spell, thought it'd help me find some peace. He paused, gaze distant. But peace wasn't what I found. A chill crawled up my spine. What did you find? I wanted to ask, but the words stayed locked in my head. He turned to me, eyes boring into mine. You've seen it, haven't you? The thing that comes when you stop talking. My breath caught. He knew. Somehow he knew. I nodded, just a tiny jerk of my head, but it was enough. He sighed, looking almost sad. I figured. It's been a while since I've seen someone else go through it. You're brave, or maybe foolish, to keep going. I wanted to scream, what is it? What's happening to me? But I couldn't. I just sat there, fists clenched, waiting. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. Take this, he said, pressing it into my hand. When it gets bad, and it will, read it. Might help. I took the paper, fingers trembling. He stood up, brushing off his coat. Good luck, quiet one. You're gonna need it. And then he was gone, shuffling down the path, disappearing into the crowd. I unfolded the paper with shaky hands. Scrawled in messy handwriting were 2 sentences. It feeds on your fear. Starve it. I stared at the words, my mind spinning. Feeds on fear? What did that mean? Was the thing in my apartment some kind of fear eater? And how was I supposed to starve it when I was terrified out of my mind? I shoved the paper into my pocket and stood up, legs wobbly. The park suddenly felt too open, too exposed. I hurried back to my apartment, locking the door behind me. But the second I stepped inside, I knew it was there. The air was thick, almost buzzing, and the shadows were longer, darker, pooling in the corners like ink. I tried to calm myself, repeating the stranger's words in my head. It feeds on your fear. Starve it. But how? Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of light made me jump. I was a walking buffet of anxiety. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the whispers swirling around me like a storm. We see you, they hissed. We know you. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block them out, but it only made them louder. Then, out of nowhere, a new sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping like fingernails on glass. I bolted upright, scanning the room. The window. Something was at the window. I crept over, heart pounding, and peered out. Nothing. Just the empty street below, bathed in moonlight. But as I turned away, I caught it, a reflection in the glass. A face, pale and twisted, grinning back at me. I gasped, stumbling back, but when I looked again, it was gone. I sank to the floor, shaking. This wasn't just in my head. It was real, and it was getting stronger. I pulled out the stranger's note and read it again. It feeds on your fear. Starve it. But how? How do you stop being afraid when fear is all you have left? Then it hit me. Maybe the silence wasn't the problem. Maybe it was what I was doing with it. I'd been so focused on not speaking that I'd forgotten to listen, to really listen to myself. All this time, I'd been running from the whispers and shadows, but maybe they were trying to tell me something. Maybe the thing in the quiet wasn't just a monster. Maybe it was a mirror. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. Okay, I thought. Show me. And just like that, the whispers changed. They softened, slowed, until they weren't whispers at all. They were memories. My own voice echoing back at me. You're not good enough. You'll never figure it out. You're alone. All the doubts I'd buried, the fears I'd ignored, spilling out in the silence I'd created. The shadows, too. They weren't reaching for me. They were me, the parts I'd hidden away. The thing in the quiet wasn't some external monster. It was my own darkness, clawing its way out. I opened my eyes, the realization crashing over me like a wave. The silence hadn't summoned something evil. It had forced me to face what was already there. And now I had a choice. Keep feeding it with fear, or starve it by facing the truth. Easier said than done, of course. But as I sat there, the whispers fading to a murmur, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe I could beat this. Maybe I could turn the silence into something powerful. Little did I know, the hardest part was still to come. Because while I was busy figuring out my own demons, something else had slipped through the door I'd left open. And it wasn't going to leave without a fight. I thought I had it all figured out. By week 4 of my self-imposed silence, I convinced myself that the whispers and shadows haunting me were just my own fears, magnified by the quiet. It made sense. Stop talking, stop distracting yourself, and all the buried stuff starts creeping up. That stranger in the park had even given me a clue. It feeds on your fear. Starve it. So I decided to face it head on. No more running, no more hiding. I'd starve this thing by owning my darkness. Easier said than done, naturally. Every night, the whispers would kick in, mocking me with my own voice. You're weak. You're broken. You'll never be enough. The shadows would slink closer, stretching across the walls like jagged claws. I'd sit there, staring them down, thinking, I see you.
You're part of me.
I'm not afraid. Sometimes it worked. The whispers faded. The shadows retreated. Other times, I'd end up a trembling mess, curled up till sunrise. But I pressed on. Only a few days left in my experiment, and I wasn't about to give up. Then something shifted. It started small, a chill in the air, a prickling on my skin, like the silence had grown sharp edges. The whispers stopped sounding like old memories. They started saying things I'd never thought, things I'd never dare admit. Let us in, they hissed. We're hungry. I tried brushing it off, telling myself it was still just my mind playing tricks. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't only my darkness anymore. Something else had slipped through the door I'd cracked open with my silence, and it wasn't planning a quiet exit. Everything exploded on day 28. I was at my desk, scribbling in my notebook, when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then out. The room drowned in darkness, and the whispers roared to life. Now, they screamed.
Now.
I fumbled for my phone, switching on the flashlight. The beam sliced through the black, and there it was, really there for the first time. The shadow wasn't just a flicker anymore. It was a figure, tall and thin, with limbs bent at wrong angles and eyes like voids carved in the dark. It stood in the corner, watching me, and I swear it grinned. I froze, my breath trapped. This wasn't me. This wasn't my fear. This was something else, something that had been waiting for me to slip up. The thing tilted its head, and a voice slithered out, not a whisper, but a low growl. You invited us. Now we stay. I stumbled back, heart pounding. No, I thought, panicking. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to find myself. It laughed, a sound like shattering glass. You found us instead. I had to escape. I lunged for the door, but the darkness thickened, dragging at my legs. The shadow darted, fast as a blink, blocking my way. I skidded to a halt, gasping. What do you want? I screamed in my head. It leaned in, its breath icy on my face. Your voice, your fear, your silence. I shook my head, tears burning. I won't give it to you. Its grin widened. You already have. Then, just like that, it vanished. The lights flared back on, the whispers died, and the air felt normal again. I collapsed, sobbing, my phone still gripped tight. What had I done? What had I let in? I didn't sleep that night. I sat against the wall, waiting for it to return. It didn't. The apartment was silent, too silent. And that's when it hit me. The silence wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to them. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't keep this going. I had to break my vow, speak, and slam that door shut. But when I tried, nothing happened. My throat locked up, my lips moved, but no sound came out. Panic surged. I tried again. Hello, help, anything. Silence swallowed it all. I grabbed my notebook and scrawled, I need to talk. Please. I bolted to Sarah's place and pounded on her door. She opened it, startled. What's wrong? You look. I thrust the note at her, jabbing at my throat. She read it, frowning. You can't talk? At all? I shook my head, tears streaming. She pulled me inside and sat me down. Okay, calm down. Maybe it's just stress. You've been pushing too hard with this experiment. But I knew it wasn't stress. I wrote, something's here.
It won't let me speak.
Sarah paled. What do you mean, something? I scribbled the whole story. The shadow, the whispers, the stranger. Her eyes widened with every line. When I finished, she leaned back, stunned. I don't even know. It sounds insane, but I believe you. You're not the type to make this up. I nodded, relieved someone trusted me. She took a deep breath. So, what do we do? How do we fix this? I had no clue. The stranger said to starve it. But how? I was already terrified, and now voiceless. Sarah grabbed her phone. Maybe there's something online. A ritual or something to banish it. I almost laughed. A ritual? This wasn't a horror flick, but I was desperate enough to try. We dug through websites for hours. Ghost stories, legends, nothing solid. Then Sarah found an old forum post. Silence opens the door to the unheard. To close it, you must speak your truth. I stared at it. Speak your truth. But I couldn't speak, or could I? Maybe it wasn't just about sound.
Sarah looked at me.
Maybe it's not literal. Maybe it's about saying something real, something you've buried. It clicked. I'd been silent, sure, but I hadn't truly faced my fears, just skimmed them. Maybe the shadow fed on what I wouldn't say. I wrote, I need to go back.
Alone.
Sarah argued, but I stood firm. This was my fight. I hugged her and returned home, bracing myself. The moment I stepped inside, the air grew heavy. Shadows thickened. Whispers hummed low and menacing. I sat cross-legged on the floor and closed my eyes. All right, I thought. Let's do this. I let the memories flood in. Every doubt, failure, secret I'd buried. I didn't fight them. I felt their weight. Then, in my mind, I spoke. I'm scared of being alone. I'm scared I'll never be enough.
I'm scared of what's inside me.
The whispers snarled. The shadows writhed. I kept going. I've hurt people. I've lied. I pretended to be someone I'm not. A cold gust tore through the room. Windows shut tight. The lights flickered. The shadow towering over me. Eyes blazing. But I'm trying. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to face myself. With all my strength, I forced the words out loud. My voice broke, rough and weak, but it came. I am enough. The shadow shrieked, a sound like scraping metal, and darkness swallowed the room. It rushed me, a wave of cold rage, and I thought I was done. Then, silence. True, peaceful silence. I opened my eyes. The room was normal, the air light. Shadows were just shadows, whispers gone. I breathed deep, my voice shaky but mine. It's over, I whispered. I did it. Yet, as I stood, a flicker of doubt lingered. Had I closed the door, or just delayed it? What if it returned stronger? I'd find out eventually. For now, I had my voice.
And that was enough.
When I woke up the next morning, the apartment felt different, like the air had been scrubbed clean. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and golden, chasing away the shadows that had clung to every corner. I sat up, blinking, half expecting to hear the whispers or see a flicker in the dark. Nothing. Just the soft hum of the city outside and the steady tick of the clock. I tested my voice. Hello. It came out clear, strong. Relief washed over me, but beneath it, a tiny knot of unease lingered. I'd faced the thing in the quiet, spoken my truth, and it had vanished. But had I really won? Or was it just biding its time? I spent the day tidying up, trying to shake off the lingering chill. My notebook lay open on the desk, pages filled with frantic scribbles. I flipped through them, reading my own descent into fear. It felt like a lifetime ago. I thought about tearing them out, starting fresh, but decided against it. They were part of me now, a reminder of what I'd faced. By afternoon, I was restless. I needed to get out, to feel normal again. I grabbed my coat and headed to the park, the same bench where I'd met the stranger. He wasn't there, of course. Probably never would be. I sat down, watching the ducks glide across the pond, their ripples breaking the stillness. That's when it hit me. Silence wasn't the enemy. It never had been. It was what I'd brought into it. My fears, my doubts, my refusal to face myself. The thing that had haunted me wasn't some external monster. It was the part of me I'd ignored for too long. And when I finally acknowledged it, spoke to it, it lost its power. But there was more to it. The stranger's words echoed in my mind. It feeds on your fear. Starve it. He'd known something. Maybe he'd faced his own shadows too. I wondered if he'd ever found peace. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the grass, I made a decision. My month of silence was over, but I wouldn't go back to the way things were. I'd learned too much. I'd keep listening to myself, to the world, to the quiet spaces between words, because that's where the truth lives. I stood up, ready to head home, when a familiar voice called out, "Hey, stranger." Sarah jogged over, grinning. "You're talking again. How does it feel?" I smiled, genuinely this time.
Good.
Really good. She linked her arm with mine. "So, what did you learn from all this? Was it worth it?" I thought for a moment. Yeah, it was. I learned that silence isn't empty. It's full of everything we don't say. And if you're not careful, it can swallow you whole. She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds intense." I laughed.
It was.
But I also learned that facing your fears, speaking your truth, can set you free, even if it's scary as hell. She nodded, thoughtful. "Well, I'm glad you're back. And if you ever decide to go silent again, maybe give me a heads up?" "Deal," I said, squeezing her arm. That night, I sat at my desk, the apartment quiet but not oppressive. I opened my notebook to a fresh page and started writing, not about fear or shadows, but about what I discovered, about how sometimes the things that scare us most are the things we need to face, about how silence can be a teacher if you're brave enough to listen. As I wrote, a soft breeze rustled the curtains, and for a split second, I thought I heard a whisper, just a faint murmur, like a sigh. I paused, pen hovering, but it didn't come again. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe it was a reminder that the door I'd opened would never fully close. I smiled to myself. That was okay. I wasn't afraid anymore.